Good afternoon. This is Jeremy Murphy. I am a coach in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm a running coach. Just became a certified health coach. And so we're going to talk about New Year resolutions today, whether we should make them or not, whether they doom us to failure or give us a chance at success, and maybe talk about goals and destination points and how to best reach them. Sometimes maybe the best way to approach this is to really look at what the destination is. And if our New Year's resolution is not in alignment with what that destination is, we're going to have problems. They say, experts tell us that New Year resolutions are frequently broken within the first week. So why do we continue to make them? We talk about turning over a new leaf, and then we sprint into the new year and fall on our face. Why does that happen?
Yeah, exactly. And yet it's interesting. In the studies that were done, only 45% of people set New Year's resolutions. So it's 55% of us don't even bother because we've all done that. We've set a goal and then, that seemed like a good idea at the time.
Good point. Greg, I think it's interesting. Sometimes we set a resolution, a New Year's resolution, and maybe we fail at it, but the next year we succeed at it. Have you ever encountered something like that? Because that's happened to me.
Absolutely. Failure is part of success, I think.
That's a great point. We have things go wrong, and sometimes there are things we don't expect. I might go out running and might slip and fall. And right. I had two rough falls this year. And the first one I hit my head, and the second one I hit my ribs. and
you need all of them.
Yeah. I jokingly asked my mother if she had any spare ribs at home because the rib incident happened in their driveway. And Mom didn't think that was very funny. So I was just trying to make light of the situation. But,
absolutely.
It doesn't always pan out like we think.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So,
well, that whole thing is interesting because in terms of failure, like none of us would be where we are without failure. Like I know I don't remember ever falling while I was learning to walk, but I'm pretty sure I did. I know my son fell many times when he was trying to learn how to walk. I know that when I first started to run, I would run at about midnight or 1 o'clock because I didn't want people to see the fat guy running. And I could only run. My goal was I would run from light pole to light, from one light pole to another, and then I'd walk to the next one. Then I'd run and walk. I did that, and eventually I got up to 8 miles, and then I broke my foot running. And then I stopped running. So,
well, I mean, to rewind, when I started running, I learned I had asthma. I couldn't run more than a quarter mile without wheezing.
Wow.
And my brothers and my dad would just shake their head and say, "You got to keep trying. You got to keep trying." And I kept saying, "Oh, do I really have to do this? Do I even enjoy this?" But they were right.
So your family's your running?
And I kept going. And our entire family is pretty much mostly crazy about running. I'm probably the craziest one about running.
Oh, awesome.
But I relied on their little encouragement and support. And if I hadn't had that, I might have given up.
I think that's huge.
I would have would never become a marathoner, would never become an ultramarathoner, wouldn't have become a running coach. I mean, this whole path would not exist. I'd be in a different branch of the tree of life.
So you just started becoming a marathoner last month, right?
No, I've been a marathoner since 1988.
So it took you a little while.
I'm an
old
timer marathoner.
So it took you a little while.
It took a little while, but by the time I was in high school, then I became pretty serious about it because I realized it was keeping my asthma in check. That's awesome. The more I ran, as long as I was careful about it, it did keep the asthma at bay. And I've noticed as an adult, pushing that a little further, still being careful about it, that it does keep asthma pretty much out of my life. I mean, I go to a doctor periodically and get checked for it, and they just this doctor shakes her head and says, "You're doing what? And how? And okay, you're doing pretty well."
Well, that's interesting.
But the last time... Yeah, the last time I saw her, though, she said, "You're having inflammation in your lungs." And I didn't realize this. And I said, "Well, I've been struggling with training." And I thought maybe, I'm just pushing too hard. But I think a lot of it was I was eating the wrong kind of food, inflammatory foods that were putting on weight, causing inflammation in my lungs. And I think we need to be more careful about what we're eating and reading labels. So, I have a couple examples of healthy things we can eat. If, for example, if we eat oatmeal, and I found out I have high cholesterol, so I had to start eating oatmeal to get the oats to deal with the bad cholesterol. And there are all these sugary oatmeals where the first ingredient is sugar. And then you have 2 or 3 different derivatives of sugar after that. And then you have all these, artificial colors and flavors. And we're not even supposed to be consuming those things. But that's the type of oatmeal we buy for our children. We serve to our families. And so, I pretty much have switched to a type of oatmeal that has one ingredient, Irish oats.
Well, I try to eat steel cut oats,
and those are great too. We buy those, and the point is, if there are ingredients that we can't pronounce and we don't know what they are, and it ends up that they're derivatives of sugar, or they're hiding trans fats, calling them other things. There are these tricks that food manufacturers use. And even things simple like putting chia in your oatmeal, or having healthy snacks that have chia in them for your children and your family. So this is Mama Chia seeds, and it's all organic. You don't have to worry about what's in it. There's coconut derivatives in it, and coconut is a healthy fat. Consumed in moderation, it's fine. If you go crazy with it, you could have a problem.
So you're saying you kind of got to get to know yourself.
You really do.
Because you didn't know that you had an inflammation in your lungs, but you did. And so have you eliminated that through changing your diet?
I think I have.
Wow.
I think I have.
Right.
In fact, I was supposed to see my asthma doctor this year, and she was booked until January. And so I said, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I'm not, it can wait till January. And I ought to tell her in January that a month after I saw her, I ran a 50K. Wow. Didn't have any problems. My first ultra, and I've been run streaking for almost 800 days now. And that means running a mile or more consecutively. Wow. That's not easy to do. I mean, you get tired. You want to just have a day where you just decide, I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to give in. I'm going to revert to my old ways. And I think that's really what pulls the rug on us sometimes with these resolutions. We set ourselves up and maybe set our expectations too high, resolve to do too much, too fast, instead of doing tiny incremental things, focusing on maybe one thing a month, whether it's getting more sleep, drinking more water,
right?
Drinking more water instead of unlimited quantities of pop.
I'm gonna go get my water.
Okay. And water consumption. I measure my water now in a 32-ounce bottle, and I try to drain this about 3 times a day.
Right.
Sometimes the coffee consumption will get ahead of the water, and I have to redirect myself and say, no, I have to catch up.
I've had 2 of these. This is 1.5 so far today.
Well, good. Yeah, and water is such an easy thing that our body needs, and if we're short on it, it's going to cause all these other problems. Dehydration causes us to eat the wrong thing, want to drink the wrong things, sugary drinks, carbonated pop, which destroys our teeth. My dad's a retired dentist, and he had a display in his office, and it would show the sugar content of all these foods and drinks. And in that pop, it had this huge amount of sugar per can.
Yes. It's crazy.
And just think about what am I doing to my teeth?
It's like 46 grams of sugar. It's like a dozen or 14 tablespoons of sugar or something.
Right.
I could be totally off on that number, but it's huge.
I had to give it up. It was destroying my teeth, and I was going into the dentist with problems, and I realized it was the pop that was doing it. The acid and the sugar, the combination was just, if you get sugar addiction and you continue to feed that with more sugar in a pure form and any other derivatives of sugar, it's just going to continue to perpetuate, and we're going to continue to want more sugar. And so breaking that cycle, I mean, that's something that any of us can focus on as a New Year resolution, although maybe calling it a goal is better. Greg, what do you think of resolutions and goals? Do you think one of them is more effective than the other?
Well, it's interesting. I've put on about more than 400 workshops in my career, and I've never seen any speaker succeed at having a goal setting workshop. Because I think I don't think we like to set goals, and we've been taught and trained to set goals, but I don't think we like to do it because we've all set goals that we haven't completed, that we've dreamed up, or we discovered, oh man, that's going to be a lot of work. Or something comes up that derails us. So I think I like to talk about intentions. Is this my intention? Am I doing this because I want to, or because others expect it of me, or some other expectation? I think intentions are the fuel for growth. Because that's I'm not sure if I answered your question or not, but
I think that's a good way to answer it. I know Michael Hyatt and many others have talked about being more intentional. And I think sometimes we make these goals and we think, well, I'm going to write this down as a goal because it sounds nice or positive. Maybe it would help me. And sometimes we don't achieve them for reasons we don't have any control over. And if that's what happens, we just have to let that go and insert new goals. And if we have a list of 10 goals and 7 of them have failed, we have to make a new list. Do you agree? I mean, you have to start over somehow.
Well, and is it the goal, or is it the fact that I'm not clear about what I want more of or less of in my life? I mean, I've been a business coach for nearly 3 decades, and I've coached more than 500 entrepreneurs face-to-face, one-on-one in situations like this. And I can tell you, we'd start early on. I tell my clients, you can get anything you want. You first need to know what you want. And that's the rub. Sometimes I'd spend 6 months talking to my clients for an hour once a week to get them to the place where they're clear about what they want. Because we live in this world. I mean, I think that there's a paradox of choice that we have. It's this phenomenal. We take it for granted. I'll never forget, a friend of mine brought his family over from Czechoslovakia back when it was Czechoslovakia. And they came and they spent an entire day walking a grocery store. They were so entertained. They were so absolutely blown away by the fact that there were so many selections of pet food. Because in Czechoslovakia, their dog got what was left. If there was no leftovers, the dog didn't eat. Wow. And so and when they got on the plane, they gave him a hug. They said, we're so glad we don't live here. We feel sorry for you because you have so much temptation. So I think the paradox of there are so many options. I can play with this thing. I got this computer accessibility. I got so many connections, but how many relationships do we have, really? Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that I find really interesting is, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? And because once I'm clear about that, life is a lot simpler.
That's true. Finding that clarity, though, is a real challenge. And sometimes you think you have your path figured out and you're going down this direction and it looks like the direction you should go in. And then you hit a wall. Right. And you don't know, do you continue to try to break down the wall? Do you go a different direction? How does that wall show meaning? And what does that wall mean when it shows up?
Well, and that takes time. That's a great question. And it takes time, and you got to, I think a lot of it comes down to awareness and knowing yourself, but also do I know myself? And the reason I think that we don't know what we want is because we're so busy living life out there trying to please other people, because that's I think the rub of life is that to grow in life, we need to be supporting and helping other people.
True. Right.
And I mean, because, otherwise, what's the value? Whether it's Les Brown or some of those, the famous, who are you? What's your value? You want to grow your life. You want to become rich. You want to run a marathon. Find your value. Create some value. Give people something. Put yourself out there. Take a risk. Come on blab. Spend some time.
Yeah, it's really valuable if we can identify who we are, that we establish why we are who we are. And if that why doesn't reveal the answer at a deep enough level, that we continue to ask why until we completely understand who we are, what we're doing, who we're supposed to help here. Because I think we're all supposed to help each other in some way, aren't we? Or we wouldn't be here altogether.
Right. Well, I think that's part of the human condition. We wouldn't have the consciousness, the mind, and the abilities we have. We're made to be in community. It's just there are so many things that keep us out of community. I love what Brian Forsyth says. He says we live on automatic. I used to pride myself as a young man living on automatic pilot because I could get work done. I could get things done. I could, I was flowing and going. But, I wasn't present. I missed a lot of life.
Yeah, that's a powerful insight. We realize how mindlessly we're living, and I realize Brian said automatic, but to me that means mindless. I guess maybe a different way of describing the same thing, but I think I've tried to be more present, more mindful of what I'm doing, because I find if I'm not, I make incorrect decisions. And I think we all fall into that trap where if we're not thinking about how active we should be, what we should be eating, drinking, how much we should be sleeping, whether sleep is important or not. I mean, we try to cut sleep out of our lives, and then we wonder why we can't function on 5 hours sleep or less.
Oh, and we're so
let's
sleep
face it, a lot of us are wired to do that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we really are. I got with a partner and she couldn't sleep because of my snoring. So I went to see this doctor. It turned out I had mild sleep apnea, because not everybody that has that snores has sleep apnea, but everybody that has sleep apnea snores. And so I got the machine to try to cure the snoring, because otherwise the other thing was surgery on my palate. And I was like, dude, you ain't doing that. But I in the sleep study, I was only getting about 30 to 40 minutes of REM sleep a night, because what would happen with snoring, because when the oxygen level goes below 85%, adrenaline kicks in, because your body's trying to wake you up to get you to breathe.
Right.
So that adrenaline exhausts you. You wake up exhausted. Well, suddenly I had, Coach Glenda is here. Awesome. So what happened is you get sleep deprived. Your brain doesn't work. Well, so I got this machine. It's like I felt like a new person. I couldn't believe it. I was clear. Could think. I could multitask. It was amazing, the impact that a simple machine, the CPAP machine, made. It changed my life. I had no idea that I had that problem. I always thought that my ex was the reason, because every time I'd wake up, she'd be snoring. I thought that was because of her snoring, but it was me.
Yeah, that's, a lot of us have one spouse might snore more or louder than the other. And, sometimes that gets recorded, and that can be incriminating. And, sometimes we just record our dog snoring, and then we can avoid the issue entirely.
I'm sleeping with a walrus.
But yeah, you bring up sleep apnea, and I know some pretty serious runners that have had to completely back off or stop running to comply with doctor orders to get that sleep pattern back under control. And
wow.
Really? Do you ever struggle with just unplugging your brain at night? Because that's an issue for me. I can't stop thinking. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, and actually I've learned a breathing visualization technique that deals with that for me. It just, I can get to sleep like that.
Wow.
And so it's a very simple technique. So what you do is, what I do is I take my tongue and put my tongue on the roof of my mouth, on the gums behind my top teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my lips slightly parted, and then I just breathe. And I visualize that I'm breathing not through my nose, but so I have my lips parted, but I breathe through my nose. And then as I breathe in, I visualize that I'm breathing through my chest wall into my heart. I just visualize that, and then allow that breath to rise into up my spine, into my skull, and it comes out here. And it immediately stops whatever I'm thinking. And if I do that, eventually I'll fall asleep.
Wow.
It's very powerful. I've used it with clients that have had problems with racing thoughts, or entrepreneurs that have had anxiety or depression and have trouble making decisions because their mind is racing and it's constantly going. That technique will stop whatever you're thinking, and you'll just feel this quiet calm, and you'll be able to settle. And you can do it. Sometimes I've been in meetings and felt overwhelmed, and I've done it, and it just totally settles me. You do it with your eyes open. People don't even know that you're doing it. It's really powerful.
Yeah, the visualization aspect is very powerful, isn't it? Because we can find safe places or remember safe memories And if we put ourselves, for me, if I visualize the Caribbean and I can see it and I can hear the Caribbean Sea and the surf and just my heart rate will drop 20 points or more. I've tested this on my treadmill.
Wow. Yeah, but that's a great point. Those are great insights. And again, you're also kind of using a scientific method too, Jeremy, right? Because you're observing what's going on, paying attention. Because science, the scientific method is to observe and to observe what happened and draw conclusions from what. And so, science serves us. And so, by simply paying attention is a huge. All change starts from. I think starts from from that intention.
Yeah, how do we know if we're paying attention enough? Because I think sometimes we get red flags from our friends or family that we're either being mindless or we're being inattentive or some combination of the two.
Well, simple ones are because really there's only three things we can do with our mind, in my opinion, in my experience and study, is I'm going to worry about the future, ruminate about the past, or I'm going to be present. Those are only the three types of thoughts I can have. Because if I'm angry with somebody, it's about something in the past. Okay. If oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? I might be worrying about the future, and I might need to do something in the now, in the present, to do that. I had a really interesting conversation with a client one time. We were talking about life balance. Had this conversation with Coach Glenda last night, and we had set up set some goals and kind of trying to balance his life. And he called me because he was frustrated because he didn't know what to do. I said, well, why? He said, well, because I was supposed to go running. I was supposed to work out. But I can't. I said, why not? Because I don't know how I'm going to make payroll. I said, guess what? Guess what? If it would be, to be balanced is to work on making sure you can make payroll tomorrow. It would be, you'd be out of balance. So yes, you have to put the running on hold. You have to work, you're going to work out. You've been doing really good. You're going to have to break your streak because you need to make payroll. Because if you don't make payroll, it all goes south.
Yeah.
So sometimes what looks like imbalance is actually balance. And I don't even like to talk about balance. I like to talk about equilibrium because my experience of life is it's constantly moving. I'm the last survivor of my family. My older brother and sister predeceased me. My parents are gone. It's just me and and I have being my son. I've experienced lots of grief. I've experienced lots of crap, but it all comes back to who am I going to be? What choices am I going to make in the present? Because I can try to get all, I can be upset about what happened, be angry that people died. I'm worried and fearful about being alone. Well, that's all fear about the future. I'm not living now. True. Sorry, that's an awful long answer to your question.
Well, that's something we all struggle with, though. And if we're really focused on the present and how making good decisions can help us in the future, that's a powerful insight. But making sure that we're preparing for the future in an incremental way, I guess, is something I'm trying to help people with. Because I think we bite off more than we can chew with these resolutions and goals, instead of looking at incrementally what daily effort will bring us to our destination.
Absolutely,
and then working backwards if necessary to figure out how to get there.
Well, that's funny that you say that because I have, because as a result of all, the hundreds of people I've coached and I've trained over 10,000 entrepreneurs, I've observed some trends. And one of the things I've come up with is something I call the art of small steps. It's a specific coaching process to do exactly that, to get clear about the vision, get clear about the intention, make sure that you're going to do it, and then break it down into small steps, but most importantly, to deal with what I call the messy middle, because the messy middle is where we get stuck. The messy middle is where, this is going to take a lot longer, because every plan I make takes longer than I ever thought. It costs more than I ever thought.
True.
So, we just need to, I love where you started this whole thing with, what you've been, the story that you've been telling about yourself in terms of how intimately familiar you are with your own body and what you're feeling and experiencing, the fact that you're going to a doctor to get to check up, that you had inflammation, and that you took action to do something about it. That's right. Really the key to wellness, I believe, is that awareness.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a powerful insight that we can deal with things like inflammation ourselves to a great extent, and not to have to rely on doctors and medicine all the time. And I love doctors. My brother's a medical doctor, but he's a dermatologist. If you want to deal with internal things, he's not going to be able to help you there. If you have skin cancer, he can diagnose it and remove it. That's what he does every day. Right. But we can take steps to prevent skin cancer or to minimize our chance of getting it. And for runners, we're outside constantly. Right. And so a lot of runners, we're encountering skin cancer as we get older because our skin becomes thinner. And so, more solar radiation is getting through. So you have more and more melanomas. And a lot of that's preventable. But we're not taking the steps we need to prevent that from occurring.
So maybe that goes back to living life on automatic pilot that Brian Forsyth was talking about, that we're not present, we're not conscious. I know that about 5 years ago, my life coach challenged me one day. I was going on complaining about my life, and she stopped me and said, "Well, what are you doing for self-care?" I was like, "What?" I was actually angry as she asked the question. What are you doing for self-care? Because I realized I had no idea what she was talking about. And I remember, and I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "Well, when was the last time you went for a walk or got a massage or worked out?" It's like, like never, like a long time. And I hung up the phone and I thought, I don't even have a clue what she's talking about. I want to develop a self-care consciousness. I need to develop just to have a consciousness around self-care. I need to have. Yeah. I think what you're speaking to, Jeremy, is the fact that you have a mindset around your health and well-being that you've taken a lifetime to develop.
Right. And some of it was by necessity. If you have a doctor tell you you have high cholesterol, you have high triglycerides, you need to make changes, but I'm not going to tell you what they are.
Right.
That made me do my homework, figure out what changes to make and how and what I was comfortable with.
That's awesome.
But a lot of that unleashed kind of what put me here today and putting me on this coaching path and this mission to help people, not only in person, but here virtually on platforms like this, where we have people around the world. And I'm looking at the map and I see someone from Europe, someone from possibly from Africa. I can't tell from the little
hard to tell.
Yeah. So sometimes the dots are not precisely placed so you can really tell.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, happy New Year,
Happy New
Brian.
Year, Brian.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Well, this has been a really stimulating conversation. I really, really appreciate you letting me join.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining me, Greg. Yeah. Look forward to talking to you in the future and maybe talking about some books too. Yeah,
I think we should do it. We should have an author conversation. I was talking to Chuck. Was it Chuck that was on the other day? Yeah, I was talking, we did some Twitter back and forth. I was thinking, man, we should have get authors together and just talk about the process of writing and kind of the challenges and opportunities and see what happens. I don't know. We'll see. I got so many projects on the go, but that's what makes me come alive. So it's just my nature, my personality.
I see Coach Glenda is reminding us that she's an author.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for telling us, because I had trouble telling who is and who isn't unless I can remember the title of their book.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Okay. I think Greg might be grabbing his books. I know he's written a couple, so maybe he's going to hold them up for us.
So this is my second book, Tips and Traps for Writing an Effective Business Plan. This is the one that was translated into Spanish, and it's also available as an ebook. And it's done better in Spanish than it did in English. And was about the educational division of McGraw-Hill sold it as a textbook in Spain and somewhere in South America. I forget where. But it's been an interesting journey. And so, it's like you say, healthify your New Year's resolutions and goals. Like, how are you, do I really want to set this goal? Am I really going to be prepared to follow through? Am I doing this because I feel the pressure? Or I think a lot of times we set goals because of regret of what we didn't do before. And so we think that we're going to solve the problem by setting the goal, when in fact, what we need to do is deal with the past and let go of that story.
True.
And get clear about what I want so I can actually move forward rather than take a step, rather than set myself up to disappoint myself, because we all fail all the time. It's true. It's called learning.
That's one of the best things to call it, actually. Right. If we fall on our face and we fail, and we can treat that as a learning experience and be able to gain something valuable from it, then it's a lesson. And if we treat life like that, we're not going to be in this victim mentality where we're just ready to punch people's lights out if they attack us. And let's face it, I'm a lawyer. I don't practice law anymore, but I have the training. If somebody attacks me, I can get defensive. But I find myself now, when I feel that feeling come, I'll say, no, I don't have to do that. Or I'll realize, okay, why are you getting defensive with your child, your wife, your family, your closest friends? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That's not any way to have a meaningful, powerful relationship with people.
Well,
you have to be more collaborative.
Yeah, there's that whole victim-perpetrator model, right? I think, and truly learning to collaborate it's kind of unusual today. We had a meeting of a group of holistic practitioners here. We had our best attended event. We do it every single Wednesday. We were talking about collaboration, and so what was interesting is I said, so when you think of collaboration, tell me how you feel about collaboration and how you collaborate. And not one single person answered the question. They all talked about what didn't work and what they wanted, but they didn't talk about experiencing collaboration. I thought that was very telling.
Yeah. I've had a powerful revelation with that. I was kind of in my own little silo for about a year. And I finally realized I'm not getting anywhere doing that. And so opening my mind and my possibilities to working together with others, it's just unleashed complete new paths that wouldn't have been possible by myself.
And the energy that you get, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we do have to adapt. When we fail to accomplish our goals or our New Year resolutions, we need to adapt and say, I'm going to start over. I'm going to make a new list. And whether I call it goals, resolutions, intentions, we could call it expectations. And some people don't like that word. I do.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well, it's really good that Ha dropped by, and
Yes.
nice to see some people come and listen. And I think that this is a really exciting platform. I've been watching it for a little while. I finally decided to jump in, and I think this is. I like it better than Periscope. Periscope is neat, but I love the conversation, being able to see people and actually hear people.
Yeah.
There's a
Periscope
transference
is tougher.
Yeah,
Periscope is lonelier.
It is. It very much is. Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, so and you're working on a book?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm writing a book called The Positivity Patrol, and I'm in chapter 3 or so.
Awesome.
It's mapped out as a 10-chapter book. So I'm hoping to maybe finish it by the summer. That'd be about a chapter a month. I think I could do that.
I'm the wrong guy to ask. Because I'm the wrong guy to ask, because I wrote one 384-page book and one 284-page book. I wrote both of those in 3 months. Wow. But I literally ate, lived, and breathed the books. It's just it was the deadline that they had, and that I had to work with. So that's what we did. But it also fits the way I am. I tend to be all in or all out.
Yeah.
So that characteristic has, good. It's a two-edged sword, as they say.
That's true. Well, I think I'm going to probably stop the recording here. Okay. We can keep chatting if you want. Otherwise we can talk at another time. I'm open to continue it, but I think I've covered what I wanted to cover for this.
I was thinking tomorrow about having tomorrow afternoon, have a kind of a conversation around living your dream in 2016. Just talk about dreams and talk about, the messy middle, and talk about goals and New Year's and, successes and failures. And so if you're around, I'd love to have you join me. Sure.
Yeah, I don't have anything planned tomorrow. I thought about planning a blab, but I think I want to keep tomorrow open. Okay. So maybe I can float to several of them. And hopefully
there's some really interesting topics going on here. That's for sure. So I'll schedule one, and look forward to seeing you around. I really appreciate your generosity in allowing me to come and participate. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. I have one question before we close this, and I meant to ask earlier and I forgot. You talked about getting stuck. Yeah. And I think sometimes we are stuck, and sometimes we perceive that we're stuck. Do you think sometimes it's being stuck is an illusion? And how do we know?
I think it's a good point. I don't. I've never. That's a really great question. I've never been asked that question.
It's a tough question. It might be an entire blab.
Yeah, we should do a blab about that. I like to think about it, but I think that we do. I think that I have two comments right off the top of my head. One is, I think I can talk myself into being stuck. I also know that I can get myself unstuck by changing my mind, because if I move my thoughts, if I don't move my thoughts off being stuck, I won't get unstuck. I have to. True. So I have this idea that if I move my thoughts, I move my life.
Right.
So that's what I'd say to that. Just move your thoughts. And so in order to move your thoughts, you got to be aware of what you're thinking. I lived a lot of my life on autopilot, not knowing that I had stinking thinking, like Zig Ziglar says.
Oh, that resonates with me. I have gone several years doing that too, and you just you wake up and you wonder, what was I doing? How did I not notice that I was operating this way? And then you get a powerful revelation that you've been operating that way, and you're forced to change or to stay where you are. That's the choice. And every year we have that choice. I can make healthy choices, or I can make unhealthy choices. I can stay where I am, or I can take steps to transform my life. So if for anyone needing help with that, I'm available as a health coach, as a running coach, as a life coach, and I'll keep working on my book. And I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, Greg.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Look forward to seeing you guys around
too.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Make healthy choices. Bye.